The rain came down in silver threads that afternoon, drenching the streets of Atlanta in a melancholy calm. Cars rolled past in hurried splashes. Umbrellas bloomed like black flowers across the sidewalk. But one figure didn't move. A little girl, no more than 12, sat on the edge of a park bench, her school backpack soaked, a lunchbox on her knees. She ate quietly, spooning cold rice and beans into her mouth, rainwater streaking her cheeks. A black sedan slowed at the corner. Inside sat Daniel Whitmore, a man whose name was printed on skyscrapers. A self-made millionaire, founder of Whitmore Tech, Daniel was a man who had everything except peace. He was on his way to a corporate meeting when his eyes caught the familiar face through the curtain of rain. At first, he thought he was mistaken, but the tiny dimple on the girl's left cheek, that was Amara, his adopted daughter. His hands trembled. "Pull over," he ordered his driver. The car skidded to a halt. Daniel grabbed an umbrella and stepped into the rain. "Amara," he called, approaching slowly, his heart pounding against his chest. The girl froze mid-bite, her spoon clattering into the lunchbox. Her big brown eyes widened, then darted to the ground. "Dad," she whispered. Daniel crouched beside her, confusion thick in his voice. "Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at home? You're drenched." But Amara didn't answer. Instead, she closed her lunchbox, clutching it like it was her only possession. "I didn't want to eat inside," she said softly. "Why not?" Daniel asked. She hesitated, lips trembling. "Because I didn't want to mess up the table." Daniel frowned. "What? Mess up the table?" Amara's voice broke. "Mrs. Whitmore said I should eat somewhere else if I can't eat properly." The rain was cold, but Daniel suddenly felt something far colder twist through him. "Your mother said that?" His tone was flat, almost mechanical. Amara didn't meet his eyes. "I spilled soup last week. She said the dining room is for people who belong." The world seemed to stop. The sounds of rain faded, leaving only the beating of his heart, loud, furious, and broken. He looked at his daughter, her tiny frame shivering, her braids plastered to her forehead. She was eating in the rain because she didn't feel like she belonged in her own home. Daniel swallowed hard. He'd been so consumed by work, charity events, and stock reports that he hadn't seen what was happening under his own roof. He'd thought his wife, Victoria, was the perfect mother, elegant, polished, but she had made his daughter, their daughter, feel like an outsider. "Come on, sweetheart," he said gently, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "You're coming home with me. We'll fix this, I promise." Amara looked up at him, uncertain. Will she be mad? Daniel shook his head. "No one will ever make you eat in the rain again." Back at the mansion, Victoria was sitting by the fireplace with a glass of red wine when the front door burst open. "Daniel," she called, startled. "Why are you drenched?" He ignored her question, guiding Amara inside. The child's shoes squeaked on the marble floor. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "You can't just let her track mud into the—" "Enough!" Daniel snapped, his voice like thunder. Victoria froze, her wineglass halfway to her lips. "What did you tell her?" he demanded. "About eating properly? About belonging?" Victoria gave a faint, dismissive smile. "Daniel, she's a sweet girl, but she doesn't know how to behave at formal dinners. I was only teaching her manners." "Manners?" His voice rose. "You made her eat outside like a stray animal. In the rain." Amara flinched at his tone. Daniel immediately softened and turned to her. "Go upstairs, sweetheart. Change into something warm. I'll be there soon." When she was gone, the mask on Daniel's face fell away. "You know what kills me, Victoria?" he said quietly. "You wanted this adoption as much as I did. You stood beside me when we signed the papers. You smiled for the cameras." Victoria's gaze turned icy. "That was for you, Daniel. The press adored it. The billionaire with a rescued child. You wanted to feel like a hero. But she doesn't fit in here. You can't just buy love and call it family." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. It was then he realized that the mansion he built, every chandelier, every marble floor, was nothing but a gilded cage. And the woman he thought shared his heart never really had one. Without another word, he walked away. Upstairs, Amara sat in her pajamas, hugging her stuffed elephant. Daniel knelt beside her, brushing her damp curls from her face. "Amara," he said gently, "do you know what rain does?" She blinked. "Makes everything wet." He smiled sadly. "Yes, but it also makes things grow." He took her hand. "We're going to start over, okay? Just you and me. Somewhere you never have to eat alone again." Amara's eyes glistened. "Promise? Promise." Outside, the rain eased into a soft drizzle. But in Daniel's heart, a storm had just begun, one that would change the course of his life forever. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Whitmore estate, but it brought no warmth to the man who sat in the study, staring at a single photograph. A smiling family portrait taken the day Daniel and Victoria had adopted Amara. In the picture, Daniel's arm was proudly around his new daughter's shoulders. Victoria's smile was flawless, yet now it looked like glass, polished, cold, and hollow. Daniel exhaled slowly. His mind replayed every little thing he'd ignored. The way Amara went quiet whenever Victoria entered the room, how she always asked permission before sitting at the dining table, how her laughter had slowly faded over the months. He had mistaken her silence for shyness. It was pain. He stood, grabbed his car keys, and made a call. "Cancel all my meetings," he told his assistant. "I've got more important work to do." Amara was in the kitchen when he found her sitting beside the housekeeper, Mrs. Rosa, who was drying her hair with a towel. "Morning, sweetheart," Daniel said softly. "Morning, Dad," she murmured, eyes lowered. He crouched beside her. "How about we go somewhere today? Just you and me." Her eyes lit up faintly. "Like where?" Daniel smiled. "Somewhere we both belong." An hour later, the car rolled into a neighborhood Daniel hadn't visited in years, the west side of Atlanta, where his company had once built a youth center. It was a humble community, alive with noise, color, and the smell of fried chicken from the corner store. Daniel parked near the playground and opened the trunk. Inside was a bag filled with food, Amara's favorite, jollof rice, grilled chicken, and apple juice boxes. Her jaw dropped. "You remember this?" He chuckled. "Of course I did. You told me this was your celebration meal, remember?" She nodded shyly. "From the day I got adopted." Daniel's chest tightened. "Yeah, that day." They sat together on a picnic table. For the first time in months, Amara ate without fear, laughing when Daniel spilled juice on his sleeve, teasing him about his poor chopstick skills. "Hey," he said suddenly, "what would you think about moving? Just us." Her spoon paused midair. "Move? Like away from the big house?" "Yeah, somewhere smaller, simpler, somewhere that feels like home." Amara hesitated. Would Mrs. Whitmore come too? Daniel's smile faltered. "No, sweetheart." She wouldn't. Amara looked down, then whispered good. It was a small word, but it pierced through Daniel like a blade of truth. He reached over and hugged her tight. "You don't ever have to be afraid again," he said. That evening, Victoria returned home to find a living room empty. No laughter, no sound, just a note on the grand piano. Victoria, you've made it clear what belonging means to you. Amara belongs with love, with kindness, with me. The mansion is yours. The silence that comes with it is, too. Daniel." She tore the letter in half, but the sound of paper ripping only echoed the emptiness around her. Weeks passed. The tabloids had a field day. Whitmore couple split. Sources say adopted daughter at the center of rift. Daniel didn't care. He had sold the mansion, downsized to a cozy house near the youth center, and started a scholarship fund in Amara's name. The Belong Foundation, dedicated to children who had aged out of foster care. Every weekend, father and daughter cooked together, burned pancakes, and painted the walls in bright colors. Sometimes, Amara would ask if he missed the mansion. Daniel would always answer the same way. "I don't miss walls, sweetheart. I miss laughter." One rainy afternoon, almost a year later, Daniel received an unexpected letter from the adoption agency. It was handwritten and brief. Amara's birth mother recently reached out, hoping to meet her someday, only with your consent. Daniel read the note twice, then looked at Amara, who was sitting by the window, sketching raindrops. "Sweetheart," he began gently, "do you remember when I told you rain makes things grow?" She looked up. "Yeah." He smiled. "I think it's time something else grew. Your story." A week later, They met at a small cafe downtown. A nervous woman in her 30s stood up as they entered, dark eyes, trembling hands, hope written all over her face. "Amara," Daniel whispered. "That's her." Amara clutched his hand tightly, then took a brave step forward. The woman knelt, tears spilling freely. "I never stopped thinking about you," she said. "Not for a day." Amara looked back at Daniel, unsure. He nodded softly. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go on." She took another step, then another, and wrapped her arms around her mother. Daniel stood by the window, eyes glistening as rain began to fall again. This time, the rain didn't bring sorrow. It washed everything clean, the pain, the guilt, the loneliness. He thought of that first rainy day when he'd found Amara eating alone, and realized that what broke his heart had also rebuilt it. 1 year later, the grand opening of the Belong Foundation home drew a small but emotional crowd. Children played on the grass, volunteers handed out meals, and on the building's front wall hung a mural, painted by Amara, depicting a girl eating in the rain with a man holding an umbrella over her. At the bottom, the words read, "Love doesn't care where you come from. It just refuses to let you sit alone in the storm." As Daniel stood there, surrounded by laughter and the scent of rain, he realized something profound. He had set out to change one girl's life, but in the end, she had changed his.